Let's do this, little dragon!
And my friend here has a bit of a crush on. Oh, you're going on.
No, God, no!
Oh, what?
Oh, God, no!
No, she was like, no!
Okay, no.
I really like X-Men Evolution.
Oh.
I don't have a crush on the Blob, that would be...
Oh, Freddie Duke?
But no, dude, I was like really into X-Men when I was little.
All right, thanks.
I mean, she's a very avid fan of the Brotherhood. So I'm so sorry.
He's lying. He totally meant
I don't
it.
bother.
What's that?
No one's here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I get a photo with you?
Of course, I'd be honored.
I feel like
I've got like 2 questions and they're both like...
Like, you enjoyed how Freddie came across, which is pretty cool. So I was hoping, because I wanted to add a little extra dimension to him, where he wasn't just like this guy running around, but like he was a kid that had a lot of heart too, right?
I relate to the Blob very well. I'm a big guy who's got a big heart and he's always misunderstood.
Yeah, and that's like Freddie Duke. Like, it was all those things, right?
Yeah.
And so he's like this gentle giant. That's why I like. That's why I liked him as a character too.
They made so much fun of him. That was horrible.
Yes, and I was bullied when I was a kid too, so I totally related to it. So it was like, I was the opposite. I was like super skinny kid in school. So, yeah, so I was good fodder for the bullies to pick on. Yeah, so and we moved a lot. Like my parents, both military, so we moved like sometimes 3-4 times a year. So I was always the new kid at school. So yeah, So it was that to contend with too. So I related to him quite a bit. Yeah.
So to formally start this off, we've got Dobson, and usually these are, as you've seen, I mean, pretty much this is the entire environment. What we've already been doing is nice and casual.
Oh, cool.
But
I like
you just want to quick introduce yourself for everyone. You know.
Sure. Hi, I'm Michael Dobson. I am Michael Dobson.
Sure, right? Are you positive?
And I am Michael Dobson.
Oh,
Is that what you wanted me to do? Just like
And
reach
then,
one of the cameras?
what your roles are, that kind of thing.
Oh, okay. I started off in theater, and then I went into film and television. And during that time also, I was doing a lot of voice work. Hadn't really occurred to me. I didn't even know what a voice actor made, or that it could actually be a full-time profession. I did it because it was a lot of fun. My brothers and I, when we were kids, growing up, for my 13th birthday, I got a cassette player, and my brothers and I would sit around. Because we were like huge into comics, so we'd like have the comics out, and we'd be doing all the voices to the different characters and stuff, and recording them, and then our parents would have to listen to us do all the sound effects and the voices and everything for our sketches that we did on this cassette player. And anyway, I was doing some radio stuff and everything in Victoria. I had met a guy one time, and I was doing a lot of theater at the time, and he said, you do voices and stuff like that. He said, you ever thought about doing like radio plays and sketches and stuff like that? And I was like, no. And he said, come on down to the radio station. So I went down, and they literally just popped me in a booth and just said, hit this button to record and just do something. And so I think I riffed for about 20 minutes and then left. And then I think it was like 3 or 4 days later, I got a letter from the station. They offered me a job in a late night spot as a DJ on the station, and then also to come and do commercials and stuff. And I wasn't really too interested in working from midnight to 8 in the morning on the radio, but doing sketch comedy seemed like something that I'd be really into in commercials. So I would pop in there, and literally I was like working in construction. I'd go to them and like lay down a bunch of stuff in an hour, and they give me $50. And I thought, I made $50 an hour. This is awesome. And meanwhile, I've done like 4 or 5 commercials and radio sketches. Stuff. Had no idea, what somebody should get paid for stuff like that. But I was having fun, and that was the main thing. And then later on, I met Scott McNeil. I was doing film and television in Vancouver, and he was doing a play at the time. So I'd met him through one of the theatrical productions he was doing, and he too said to me, "You thought about voice work?" And he was telling me about this stuff. And he told me about Sue Blue, who was coming into town as a big director from Los Angeles. She directed things like The Tick, and I think she even directed, I don't know, Andrea Romano did some Batman stuff, but I'm not sure if Sue does it. But anyway, she done a lot of big titles in Los Angeles, and she was doing a workshop. And I took her workshop, fortuitously, thanks to Scott's recommendation. And she remembered me 3 months later when she was back in town casting for G.I. Joe Extreme. And I went in and she went, "Hey, you took my class, and blah, blah, blah. I really like what you did." And she was very positive, and of course, that put me at ease. And because she put me at ease, there was a particular section of the script where I just felt the urge to ad-lib a bit, and it was for the role of Sergeant Savage. And the scene just kind of ended abruptly and didn't really seem to have an end, so I ended it. And apparently that's what got me the part, is Sergeant Savage at the end. She said that little bit at the end just kind of nailed it and told us that you knew who this guy was. So Sergeant Savage was the first big one, and then immediately after that I got Leonardo and the Ninja Turtles. And then I was working like 4 jobs at the time trying to make it as an actor. And I had I'd read this book that said, you know, because it's always an awkward thing when you're starting out as an actor, you tell somebody you're an actor and they say, oh yeah, what have you been in? And they never ever take you seriously when you're working full time and you say you're an actor. They always segue and go, well, what else do you do? But in the book it said, if you just say you're an actor and just tell people you're an actor, that it kind of sends a clear message to the universe about what your direction is in life and what you want to do. And so I thought, what bigger commitment could I make to the universe in my profession than quit all my jobs and just take a leap of faith and go, okay, you got to make it as an actor because you're going to be broke if you don't. And fortunately I was back in '94 and I've been working full time as a voice actor ever since, which has been amazing. It's been a great career in the sense that it's the closest thing to a normal job you could have in the entertainment industry, which is awesome. My wife and I have 4 children, and I didn't want to be the dad that was at work all the time. So being on set at 3, 4 in the morning and working in remote locations and things like that didn't really seem like be conducive to a dad that could spend time with his kids. But this is awesome. Like normally the hours are from 9 to 6, Monday through Friday. And the nice thing about it too is eventually you can have like your own studio and you can do a lot of work from home as well. So it kind of puts you in the driver's seat a little bit more. And fortunately it's kind of gone that way. But it's like any business, you're self-employed. You've got to always continually network yourself and get yourself out there and meet people and get into doors and show them what you can do. Because a lot of times people hear you on one thing and they think they don't really have a clear understanding that we as actors or as voice actors sometimes have a large playground to play in with regard to like our range and the types of like accents and dialects and the way we can tonality like change our voice. So you need to kind of get out there and show them what you can do. You know, you need to kind of sort of do that show out there and go, I can also do this, I can also do this, and let people know where your range sits, so that hopefully you continue to open doors and continually are always reinventing yourself and you know, working. Because it's when everybody thinks they've heard everything you can do, that's when it's over. And I think every artist, I don't think in just this specific area of the industry, I think any segment of this industry, you have to continue to always show people that you're reinventing yourself and you're able to come up with new stuff. I think as soon as they think they've kind of like, that's your show, that's all the stuff you can do is kind of, oh well, passing on, because there's always new people coming up, right? So it is very competitive like any other industry. So yeah, run out of stuff to say, so going on and on and on.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
Andrea Lindman said that she blew out her voice doing Flutter Hull, and I know, you know, with you with both biceps.
Oh yeah.
What do you do, if anything, to try to minimize, you know, any damage if you're, you know, going on and on, or is it just something?
No.
Have you been able to do something where it's just doesn't affect your?
Yeah, that is a good question, because when I first did Sergeant Savage, he talked like this all the time, and I noticed like the first few sessions that I did, it was exactly that. Like partway in, sometimes on some of those sessions, like you feel that scratchiness, that tickling in the throat coming in. I went, oh no, oh dear, that's not good. Because if I peter out halfway, partway through the session, I know that I'm in big trouble then, right? So fortunately, you do find a sweet spot where you can create the same sound without having to really thrash your vocal cords in order to produce the sound. It's interesting though with bulk biceps, because when we were first exploring the territory for him as a character in the first record session I had with him on the show, the producers were in the back going, more, just give us more. And of course I'm trying to stay within my safety margins, right? And they go, no, just go more. So eventually we ended up with a full blast, yeah, like the big, and it's great. I mean, it is fun, it's hilarious in the show, and I can, like when you watch it translated into the scenes, it does provide that comedy relief in the show, right? And I can see where we're going with it now. And the first time I saw him in there, I went, oh, okay, I get it now. This is funny. Because I was really worried it was going to be too much, and everybody was going, whoa, come on. So, but at the conventions, when people want you to do it, there's no way of cheating it. You can't just, when everybody goes, yeah, you can't go, yeah! Keep it in the safe zone. Everybody would be like, okay, so maybe he has a stunt guy that does it for him or something. So you got to commit. So I come to these conventions knowing probably by about the second or third day that I'll be sounding kind of like I do today, and lots of lozenges by this point, tea, whatever I can do to preserve my voice. But you do have you always kind of have it in the back of your mind where the threshold is. So you do govern yourself within that, where you're not going to completely blow out your voice. So yeah, I've learned my lesson from many years ago about going into that territory, because literally you can be days without like any real vocal ability, where you have to go in and you have to do a lower note or something for a particular character, and it's like, no, that's not going to happen. You need to rest your voice now. It's done. Yeah.
So you were saying that you were thinking that, oh, this might be too much. Did you get a chance to see the sketches of Bulk before?
It's funny. They told me about it. They said that they had introduced to him, and they had no idea that he was going to catch on the way that he did. And they said, now we want to give him some dialogue. And so then they were in the realm of wanting to hire a voice actor to bring him to life. And so sorry, your question. It was like, so in the beginning, he just had all the yeahs, and now he has dialogue, so now it's intermixed with that.
So you were able to see a picture of him before you started voicing him, or?
Yeah, and of course he was like,
came in after. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So but I had no idea in the beginning. I'd worked with the producers before, and apparently it was funny because they'd seen other things I played where I played bigger characters and stuff, and they said, when we figured we were going to hire an actor, we had you in mind right away to come in and throw down for this guy. So they explained to me right away. They said, you can't go too big with this guy. Just go for it. And so I was looking through the glass the whole time going, that? And they go, no, more. And I was like, yeah. So we just went for it, and that's where he ended up being. So yeah, it's fun. Yeah.
So, how are you enjoying your time here at Bronycon, Michael?
It's awesome.
Well, is there anything that separates cons like Bronycon from maybe your smaller run-of-the-mill cons, or the experience you're having at it, or something that's making the convention stand out to you?
You know what really stands out, which is phenomenal, to have this many people in a huge convention center like this. Like normally, at a lot of conventions, the noise level is just huge, and people are running through the hallways, and there's all this like massive amounts of excitement, and people it can be a little stressful sometimes, just being in that like ball of energy all the time. By the time you get spat out at the end of the day, it's just like you feel exhausted. But what I notice about Bronycons is like, everybody's laughing, everybody's having fun, but it's extraordinary because you find yourself standing amongst all these people, and you can just talk at this level, and you can hear one another. Whereas at other conventions, you're like having that, and you're leaning in, you're going, what? And you're trying to, like, I remember last night we were in a bar, and I went, there's a higher decibel level in this bar than there is in a convention center. How does that work? And it's true though, but everybody's so, I guess the only word that came to mind really was like chill. Like everybody's just relaxed, everybody's enjoying it. And I think it's wonderful because there's a lot of small kids that come to this show as well. And you can imagine, like, if it was that frantic kind of static electricity, that static kind of energy that you have at other cons, that would be pretty disconcerting for a lot of kids, and they would be upset, and kind of overwhelmed by the whole experience. But this just seems so calm, like people are hugging each other and coming up and talking, and there's lots of smiles and there's lots of laughter, but everybody's just going about and doing their thing, and just like in this fashion that's just so serene in a way. What I love about it, I think, is just how people who attend these conventions, Bronycon and Brony conventions, just really embrace what the show is all about. And that, to me, the first one I ever went to was Everfree Northwest, and I just about it went, everybody's so respectful, everybody's so kind, and like so nice to you. Like they and you hear all these stories about how they're networked all over the world, and people literally are interacting with one another. It's not just like, hey, how you doing, blah blah blah. It's just like fluff, I like to call it. You know what I mean? It's like people are actually engaging with one another. They're actually interested in finding out more about other people, and it's probably social networking at its best. You know, what it was really intended for, in a sense where people are actually really connecting, and then they meet up at these conventions, and they're like, hey, you're so, and I find that with, I didn't have a Twitter account before I got on My Little Pony, and it was Nicole Oliver who said, you got to have a Twitter account, and I was like, oh, okay, and it really wasn't sort of big on social networking, but this has been awesome. Like, I've made so many friends on Twitter, and when I come to these conventions, they're like, you know, I meet them and like, hey, I'm so-and-so, so-and-so, and they give you a big hug, and like the next minute we're sitting, you know, in a cafe and we're having coffee together and we're talking, and I'm making new friends. And I've kept in contact with all the people that I've met, and it is pretty amazing. It is very, very unique experience for sure. I keep saying like, wow, what a great example this is to everybody else in the world to see like it can actually work, guys. Like, you know, you look at this model and you say, people can get along, people can, you know, can understand one another and really enjoy one another's coming from anywhere in the world, and embrace one another as human beings, which is just magic in itself, which is pretty cool. When the slogan of the show is "Friendship is magic," because it truly is. Yeah, and you see that magic everywhere you go, and how it empowers people. Like a lot of people, there's been a lot of people that through, you know, My Little Pony and through Brony conventions that have literally like turned themselves around, that weren't necessarily really outgoing and were comfortable with being in that position where, you know, attention is on them and everything, where all of a sudden they're like, hey, you know what, I am pretty cool, I do have something to bring to the table, I am comfortable around being people, and that's wonderful. Because one of the things I used to say, I guess I still say it, was I always thought that acting classes in school should be like a compulsory class, because it's not about like being on stage and getting in front of a camera or anything. It's just about learning to communicate, and unfortunately some kids grow up in environments where, you know, their parents aren't necessarily communicators themselves, and so they don't really pick up those skills when they grow up, and it's such an important part of our society, and when people are not communicators, fear kind of seeps in, and then when you got a fear-based society, that's when all this chaos occurs and all this misunderstanding of things. And, you know, if you take a class like that, it just kind of lets you go, hey, you know what? All of these things I'm thinking, all of these things that make me me, other people share those thoughts too. That you know, that's normal to think that way. And I think a lot of people could really benefit from something like that, where you can kind of feel like you've got something special to bring to the table, where individuality is celebrated, and then that's a cool thing. And so when I teach at some of the classes that I teach, that's one of the first things I hit on. I always say, well, what's the one thing that separates you from everybody else in the room? What's the one thing that's unique that'll mold whatever you sculpt your career to be different from the person sitting next to you? And it's like your individuality. It's like it's a beautiful thing that everybody's wired a little differently, and that's something to be celebrated. And that's why when you take acting, you'll first learn trust exercises so that you can step out of yourself and actually say, because the sad part is when you're a kid, sometimes when you're just being an individual and you have that thought and you throw it out there, the meanies in the class, the people that are insecure, will pick on you and pick you apart for it, and you go, okay, whoa, I'm not ever doing that again. And so you end up projecting this facade that gets you through safely, right? And you don't get to experience that opportunity where your individuality is something that makes you really special and actually does attract people and makes this world an interesting place to be in. And so, yeah, I think it'd be a cool thing if everybody took something like that anyway. So, like I say, you don't need to be an actor. Just, yeah.
So I have a question. This is just to make sure you understand. I'm from Fab Equestria. We're a military brony community. So I'm interested in the fact that you grew up as part of a military family. So you know you had a lot of moving and all this other stuff. I'm wondering, though, for the fact that you took like military characters, you have the gruff voice, you have the big giant yell with long biceps. I'm wondering how much of your parents' military exposure was related to you being able to create those voices.
A lot, because I mean, when I grew up, I went to Cubs, and then I did Scouts. And it was funny because my parents actually didn't push me to do that. Those were things that I chose to do, what I wanted to do. I grew up in a very, very structured environment, obviously. My mom was an officer in the Army. She was a nurse. And my dad was in avionics in the Air Force. My mom was in the Army and my dad was in the Air Force.
Do you remember what specifically in avionics?
He did guidance control systems.
Okay.
Yeah. So I always found that interesting. It was cool because often I was able to go out and be around aircraft, and so I always had, still to this day, I have a huge love of airplanes. And so when I finished Scouts, I joined the Air Training Corps, and I had aspirations of being in the Royal Air Force. That's what I wanted to do. And then my parents moved to Canada when I was 16, and they said, I had just completed writing some exams, and I had gotten I'd been awarded a scholarship, and I was going to Malta for 6 weeks for training. And then I would have flown from there to West Germany, done 2 weeks there, and then come back. And then I had planned to write my ROTC. And I hoped that I was going to be able to make it through that and then come out as a pilot officer and begin my training as a pilot. That was my dream. And but being in that structured environment, for sure, and I saw the benefit to it. You know, my parents were very strict. But it was funny, I don't know why, I just kind of had an innate understanding that that was a good thing, so I didn't fight it. And especially when I was in Cubs and Scouts, I could see the application of that and how that was beneficial to me. So it was something that I still embrace to this day. I feel really fortunate to have gone through that. I know some people are really opposed to it when you say, you know, I think that, you know, if everybody served 3 years in the military when they come out of school, then, because I really do think that. I think that it gives you a lot of self-respect and pride, and I think that's really important. And it gives you skills, you know, where you're able to apply that to everyday life and always be positive, look people in the eye, you know, and solid handshake and all those things, and be assertive with your life, and, you know, push through obstacles, because the military teaches you to do that. Like, you just don't suddenly just abandon everything and give up and go, I can't do this. There's no such word as can't, right? You just have to improvise, and you just figure a way around things, and that's what I found really helped me a lot, because to be honest, like, things weren't that easy for me when I was growing up. I had a lot of things to push through to get through this, especially when you say you're going to be an actor. You know, a lot of people look at you like, that's it. But I think any profession, you know, if you not necessarily have the network there or connected to it, people look at you sort of like, well, how are you going to pull that up? Well, we all like to do that, regardless of what the profession is. But that military training teaches you that anything's possible, and it just takes hard work. And that's the other thing about military too. It teaches you not to be afraid of hard work. It teaches you the gratification you get and the sense of achievement when you push through something that's difficult to do. And I love that really reaching deep within yourself, that kind of tenacity to push forwards. And I love the historical viewpoint to it too. I think I've been a huge history buff, and I learned too that everything that we have today came at a huge price. And I think it would be complete sacrilege to dishonor that by not realizing what a huge gift this is. So, you know, freedom comes at a huge price, man, and it's like a lot of people literally laid down their lives for what we have today, and we need to honor that by being successful, being achievers, to push, let them know, if they can anyway, know that it was worth it. It wasn't lost on us, right? That we're pushing forwards, and that we still honor those attributes, you know.
Now, I kind of want to like follow it up and a little bit refine my original question.
Okay.
When I say like when you come up with a sergeant, I think it was a Sergeant Slaughter voice. Do you ever like think back to like some sergeants that your parents might have known, or you?
I was a drill instructor.
Yeah.
I was on the drill squad.
Nice.
And of course we did drill competitions, And I took a lot of pride in that. And it was interesting actually because I remember on an Air Force base in England we worked with the U.S. troops quite a lot. And we always, the U.S. guys would be doing their drill across from us, and their rifle drill in particular was just like mind-blowing because there's all this stuff with the twirling of the rifles and then passing back and forth, and it was always just like so succinct and just so amazing. And we used to watch these guys and you go, that'd be so cool to be. I used to even thought, I was even like talking to these guys going, like,
you're going to dishonor.
I know, really but we did though. We were watching them and just going, that's pretty cool. That was pretty cool watching those guys do that. But it was, but yeah, that's where that comes from for sure. I was very proud to be part of the drill squad, and our drill team in particular, we won a lot of competitions. So it was definitely, I draw on that a lot when I play characters like that, and having met a lot of the real deal people myself, you know, because we were working with full-time military people, and you listen to their stories and, you know, their travels, and we met a lot of veterans too, and they told us a lot of stories firsthand. And especially my generation growing up, I was, you know, during the 60s and 70s when I was a kid, there was a lot of World War II veterans. They were still pretty young, you know, and told us firsthand stories of their experiences during World War II, and that's what I mean. It's like all those stories are ingrained in my mind, and so I learned firsthand what everybody went through to be where we're at today. So it was one of those things where I sat down with my kids, and that's been a big part of my parenting with them, is to impart that to them. I want them to know what I learned and to hopefully pass it on to their kids too. But yeah, those characters for sure. It's funny because when as you know, like being in the military, anytime you meet somebody on Civvy Street, you can tell a military person right away just by the way their body posture and everything, just the way they walk around and survey the ground around them.
Body posture, the way they walk.
They're constantly aware of their surroundings, and that's one of the things I always teach my kids. All of that came out to me. It was like, whenever you're out, never take it for granted. Like, I never understand people walking around with their butts in and stuff, and walking. It's like, no man, you got to be aware of your surroundings.
You're gonna get hit by a car.
That's so, yeah, it's just, exactly.
Now there's a rule where you can't even do it. So.
Yeah, it's true. You just always need to be alert and be present, right? You need to be engaged wherever you are, for sure.
Yeah. Like on the walkway of the hill.
I was looking through it. We were crossing a walkway, and I don't know, it was the only place in the hotel where there was like a railing along the floor. And I was looking through the camera, like, I was trying to take a picture of the clock tower, and I'm walking. I'm just looking through my, yeah. Anyway, I didn't see the railing, so I did a face plant and the thing.
Good job.
Yeah, good job. Yeah, not my proudest moment.
You were aware of the clock tower.
I was aware of the clock tower. Yeah. Thanks, Denise. I appreciate that. I was aware of the clock tower. Yes. Yeah. Did I answer that one?
Yeah, you answered that. I just didn't have any further follow-up to that question. Was anybody's got any more? I can still shoot.
Yeah, go ahead.
Your father worked on guidance systems. What did your mother work on?
She was a nurse.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So she actually, when she met my father, she was just about to take a posting in France. She was, to be posted there. She was going to head up a hospital over there, and it was. I know it's kind of a segue story, but it's kind of cool. They only dated for 3 months and they got married, which is kind of cool. But she was being posted overseas, so he didn't want to waste any time. So the only way she could get out of her posting was to get married. And of course, she got reprimanded for that because she got a lot of trouble for it. My dad, actually, is funny because voices. Speaking of voices, my dad used to phone her and disguise his voice and pretend to be doctors on the phone so that he could talk to her. So I was like, yeah. And my mom, when she tells stories and everything, she's great at being able to mimic other people and do their voice and everything. So it was in the blood. My grandfather on my father's side was a film director in England. He was a documentary filmmaker, and so yeah, my dad is a great illustrator. He's quite a good artist. But so yeah, there's those artistic genes floating around in us too. So yeah.
Well, how about another one? So what a lot of veterans will go through and notice after they get back from a deployment is that they will communicate almost entirely through grunts and cursing. And considering you're a voice actor, I would think that being able to form, especially for like somebody like bulk biceps, being able to form the appropriate yell and grunt to have that kind of linguistic exchange is kind of critical. So, I mean, the way I think of it is you have all these different branches of military and all these different kinds of grunts and yells that communicate things. So you've got the military's "huh," and you've got, or "huh," and then you've got the Marine Corps' "Aya," or I can't do it right now. So "Aya."
Which one? What's that one from?
That's the Marine Corps' hoorah. Just like,
oh, cool.
You just make it a little bit more throaty.
Right.
So like if you're on a run, like if you don't want to change out like the way you're breathing, you want to like do kind of a really throaty yell, and you kind of like tilt your head back, and you can almost make a click with your throat, like, and you turn that into a sound, or and so it just comes up, and you cut it off, and it turns into a yell that can be motivating.
Especially when you're doing drill, I find that too. It's like if you're the person who's the drill instructor, and you're watching your guys around, you end up having those kind of guttural sounds. You're not really sort of.
You're never going to form a word. No. It's attention, but you say atten. That's not a word at all. Like you just have to learn what those crazy sounds mean.
Yeah.
And then like if you go worse into drill, you get like by the right flank or left oblique. I mean, oblique just doesn't even make sense.
I know, like doing the right wheel, it usually comes like, "Hey, woo!" It's just like it just. Yeah.
Your present arms. But then, if you want to have drill, which is more solemn, for like a funeral detail, you go to a very low angle. You go much quieter, and you very explicitly sound out the words like parade, press, and then everybody just takes their stance. And it's because everyone's absolutely silent, and they're just waiting for the individual commands. So, I would think that your exposure to specifically in drill and the different types of drill would kind of, and with all the different branches of military, would kind of inform your knowledge base on different grunts having different effects and different tones to mean different things.
Yeah, I took martial arts for a long time too, and there's a whole other set there too. So I guess I had a big library of grunts and yells to draw from for sure. Yeah.
It just kind of makes it just would make your character that much better because you have such experience to draw on.
Thanks. Yeah, that's true though. You definitely draw on all those experiences. Yeah, they're all there sitting in the back of your mind somewhere. Yeah, and it is. You're right, because it's just different situations. I think you just immediately just kind of relate to something, and just innately you just respond to it, and it comes out, right? Yeah. So, yeah, you're right. Definitely.
I don't really have too much else.
I have a follow-up question to what you were saying. The different sounds and stuff, which now helps me. Which helps me understand some of my friends who came back from their tours.
Okay.
But the different grunts and everything, and then I just think of the different nonsensical words that pet owners say. So now I'm just kind of wondering if military pet owners just lose the ability to speak English when they're at home.
That's fun.
Am I allowed to curse? Seriously, am I allowed to curse?
I don't give a crap.
Okay, I'll tell you a little story.
Yeah.
So my dad, my father was in the Marine Corps for a very long time, and one of the stories that he used to tell was that he would, when I was young, he would come home, we'd have all these cats and all these dogs, and they'd get in the way and they'd irritate him, so we'd like yell at them, and then one day he gets a phone call from like the kindergarten center, and I'm still gonna use my fake name for this, and he says, Mr. Saunders' father, Saunter was
he was being disruptive in the class, and we want you to come down and just talk about it. And so he went down, and they said he was completely calm, and then all of a sudden, when we asked him what the name of his kitty was, he freaked out, and I was like, maybe you just come here, let's show you. And the teacher just went over to me and said, Saunter, how do you feel? Like, I'm fine. And then and then she was like, Saunter, what's your kitty's name? Get the hell away! Like, okay.
Ready to transition.
Okay, Saunter. Okay, Saunter. What's your doggie's name? Shut the hell up! Okay, Saunter. What did you have for breakfast today? Eggs. It's like, do you see why I have this concern, Mr. Saunterhoof's father? It's like, yes, I do. And so what would happen, to answer your question, is that he would not have any real restraint when he's at home. So the cat, by virtue of association, I understood was named Get the Hell Out of the Way. And the dog was named Shut the Hell Up.
That's pretty funny.
So I hope that answers your question.
Very well,
Yeah,
thank you.
no kidding. That's pretty funny. Wow.
So somehow this became my press conference.
That's a great story,
Like
though.
I needed, with both of you guys. I don't know whether you have pets or, but I just figured just in case.
And what are they named?
What are they named?
And so, but anyway, Hans and Franz, role models for biceps.
Hans and Franz, Saturday Night Live. Oh, that was too funny. Go to pump you up.
You girly man.
Little girly man, yeah. Yeah, that was, no kidding. Definitely, I would think, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think, the only thing, it's interesting he brought that up, actually, because, I mean, they could have gone that direction with it, for sure. You know, they could have made him talk like this the whole time, and he would have, been completely different.
Mm-hmm.
But no, they decided to stay away from the Austrian oak and go completely different other direction. So none of the ow. It was like this one, yeah. Instead of yeah.
I just remember the first time I saw bulk biceps. That was what I was thinking of. Those stuffed the sweatsuits from Saturday Night Live.
Oh yeah, it totally looks like that. It's funny. It's true.
Yeah.
In fact, I think one of the guys even had like the blonde thing. Didn't he? Yeah, yeah, it was pretty funny. Yeah, Hans and Franz. It's too hilarious.
Yeah. So who do you channel bulk bicep, or is it just this is my creation? This is how this is.
Yeah, I guess it's funny because somebody brought it up today, and I went, yeah, I guess there is a little bit of him in there. They were right there. It was Freddie Duke from X-Men, because I played him. And he was a young guy in high school, but he was big, and so he sort of had that sort of quality to him too. Bulk is more, I think, just a little more amped up version of that guy for sure.
Roids, man.
Yeah, it's Roids. It's funny because I forget. I think it was.
That's after Duke's hit the gym.
I think it's Dusty that said something to me about creatine, and I just turned around and went, let me tell you about creatine. and it was funny because a bunch of people responded to that, and it became sort of like this catchphrase thing. So people like to hear that. Let me tell you about creatine. So that was pretty funny. Yeah, so that ended up being another. Obviously not part of My Little Pony, just something sidetracked from there. But
I don't know. I think that would work really well because horses eat carrots, and creatine tends to come from carrots. So
oh hey,
it'd be perfectly fitting.
Yeah, what? Make it happen. Make it happen. Yeah, write it in. Too funny. Hi.
Hi. Hey.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey, I wanted to tell you, especially because you have this upcoming panel that I read this article that Target has just removed the gender of their toy aisles, and the bronies is one of the things they list.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
How about that? That's cool.
The article And it
I
says
know
that,
they were removing the stuff. I didn't know they were putting
and
bronies
on the quote that they made, they say, oh, because we know that some girls like Skylander, which I don't know what that is, and some boys like My Little Pony.
Isn't it?
The quote they made.
That's
a public statement.
That's pretty cool.
Right? It's kind of a really big first step to...
I think so. I think it's a really cool first step. I think, because if you look back to the 60s when they were first introducing action figures, right?
Right.
It's like they didn't want to call them dolls. They,
Right.
you know, what do we call these?
Right.
Because because they found out boys were playing with them too, right? So I think toys, exactly that. Why should they be gender specific? You know, if, you know, I think it's terrible if a girl's got like a, you know, like a big truck or something she wants to play with it. Go, why are you playing with that? It's a boy's toy. It's like, or vice versa. If a boy's got, you know, like a little horse or something he wants to play, it's like is ostracized for that because that's a girl's toy. It is kind of ridiculous. It's very, when you think about it, it is pretty ridiculous that we've gone this far, and it's been like that. Toys should be just toys, right? Yeah.
That's kind of neat. The Harrods, the department store in London,
right?
Like I think last year or something. So it's a trend, and they said they're even removing the pink backing of the aisles so that there's no gendering, and they're now going further and saying, well, now we're going to remove gender from all our other departments, like bedding, you know, boys' beddings, girls' beddings. So, you know, it's interesting because it's still profit directive. It's like, oh, let's make sure we still make a profit of it. But that it's possible to make these social advancements and still retain our mindset of being profit directive.
Yeah, because in a way, though, when you think about it, you know, because you're molding people's minds from that early age. That who's to say that a girl doesn't want to be an aircraft engineer or she doesn't want to be a mechanic or, you know what I mean? You don't know. But if she's denied the opportunity to explore that, or in some way kind of taught that you know, liking trucks and airplanes and, you know, and all those kind of things isn't girl stuff, that she's being a tomboy, you know what I mean? It's like, that's wrong, isn't it? That's like, should be, because interests start at a really early age. So I mean, if she's more drawn to trucks, he's more drawn to whatever, you know what I mean? It's like, that should be their decision, not something that we try to, it's like back in the early, I mean, it almost kind of harks back to when you were left-handed, and everybody would go, no, keep putting it in your right hand, and they go, no, left is evil, no, right? It is kind of that, in a way, yeah.
And how interesting that, like, feminist scholars have been saying this for so long, but I think really it's maybe the bronies who have done this major social influence on these changes.
Isn't that cool?
They're actually being quoted.
Wow.
Right, it's kind of...
I applaud that. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's very, very cool.
Who knew what this really has, this movement has this potential, you know, what you're involved in, this art that is making these incredible social changes.
Well, I'm honored to be part of it. You know, it's, I really didn't,
Spooky.
I didn't know a lot about it, to be honest, until I got on the show, and then the producers talked to me and said, you know, wait till you see what you're involved in here. There's a whole lot more to this than just the show, and you know, it's as I started to learn more and talk to people that were already on the show and hear their stories, all of a sudden it was kind of exactly what you're saying. It was like, wow, this is a very, very cool, very, very positive movement. You know, it's great, and it's wonderful too because it's not age specific either. You know, it's people specific. Right? It's about humanity. It's about exactly the stuff that we talked about earlier. It's about communicating at last, which is so important, right? Yeah.
Or like what an odd place for this to. Oh, I'm so sorry. That's adventure time. For this to occur out of a popular culture media product, something that maybe even has similarities to what would be like part of a church movement or something. Right? These kind of collectives. I'm sorry to pull the conversation.
No, it's what a great thing to bring to, yeah.
Are you involved with any other media products that you think have any kind of other fan like base that maybe is doing something that you think is remarkable in a...
Not like this. No.
Not in anything close.
No. It's interesting that this is the, but I obviously it has a lot to do with the writing on the show. You know, and I think you know, the people that are writing for the show have been very responsible and created storylines which have struck a chord with people, which is awesome. And being able to provide it in a way that's not in any way preachy, right? It's just, it's people are watching the show and enjoying it, and then coming out the end of an episode going, wow, that really resonated with me in one way or another.
Do you watch them, the shows?
I've begun watching them, yeah, because I can't ignore it, because you know, people talk about it and people talk about it, and I've been watching the episodes. Yeah, it's what I found really entertaining was like the musical numbers are outstanding. Yeah. It's like, you know, it's like, yeah, that blew me away. I think the first one I saw was, I can't remember it, but you know, when they're in the straw hats and everything, and they're they were kind of like
the ones like the Music Man, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I didn't watch that, and I was kind of like, no way. That was like so well put together.
Yeah.
And then I realized the amount of attention and to detail that goes into the show is quite remarkable. To see everybody working so hard. Obviously, and I know you talk to everybody that's involved in the production. Everybody's working so hard to make the best show possible. You know, the amount of tweaking that goes into it and making sure that every note is note for note perfect. It's a real joy. Not everybody spends. I've worked on some shows where in the studio, you go, now this show's going to be awesome. It's going to be huge. It's just so funny. And then unfortunately, you watch it on TV, and somehow through editing and everything else, it just fell flat. Like the timing that was in the studio was edited out of the show, and somebody had messed with it and thought that they, you know, knew better, I guess, or whatever. But the whole organic feel that the show had all of a sudden was gone, and consequently, you know, partway through season 1, it's kind of petering out, and you might get a bit of a season 2, and then it's done. Whereas this show, it just seems to be garnering more and more momentum as it moves forward. Yeah.
Speaking of the musical number, Film and Flame, you know, Flame is Scott McNeil, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah. There's, you know, and it is wonderful too, because it's contagious amongst, you know, everybody. Like every facet of My Little Pony.
Right, the production.
Yeah, everybody's giving it their A game, which is pretty cool. That's what I remarked on yesterday, actually, about this con. Was like the Bronycon, it's like everybody's giving it their A game. They must be, because I said, you know, you walk around and it's just so smooth, you're not aware of anything. I said, it's like being in one of those Land Rovers, you know, where you're going through like really rough terrain, but inside you're like, oh yes, how lovely, oh look darling, and you're like not aware at all that, you know, the suspension and everything else is working overtime trying to provide you with this pleasant experience.
The secret is they give us those Men in Black flashing.
The way you go. No, it is. I think it's quite remarkable the experience here, because I think all the attendees and everybody that's here is that we have that wonderful, just really comfortable, fun. You just relax, which is interesting. With this many people, to be able to relax in an environment like that is really quite extraordinary.
Yeah. Better than any conference I've ever been to.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love it.
It's not even just the con that's doing the A game. You go to the vendor halls, see the cosplayers, you see like the panelists, like a lot of just the individual people here are also putting in their A game.
Yeah.
You've got vendors who are creating, like there was one vendor down there who has a Discord that's going for $4,000 because she's put months into it. Or you've got, I think Twisted Metal has those.
Those were amazing.
Those sculpted metal sculptures.
Really?
Made out of like metal wires.
Wire. Yeah.
You've got the people selling necklaces and jewelry and the engraving.
You've got the Interplay booth that's giving out free cards to everyone at the entire.
I know, like the level of talent.
Yeah.
And it's amazing because you talk to these people and they're like, oh, you know, and they're so humble about it, but you go, look at this is like unbelievable.
Like everybody is giving their it's not just the staff, it's not just the con, it's not just the VAs, it's like everybody involved is giving their A game. And it might be related to the fact that they find this to be a safe environment to really push themselves in it.
Yeah, it's like what we talked about way back when you just go back to individuality and being able to celebrate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
and be able to put it out in the forefront like that.
Well, what I like is that with vendors and stuff, it's that the people, the con goers, you could be, you know, making a $4,000 sculpture, or you're just starting out making buttons. People will come up and compliment your work.
Yeah.
And I don't see that in other cons that I go to and that I cover, and I really enjoy that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
If we've got still time, I can ask you another
I've
question.
got a
Sure.
question, but not really. It's just, how are you enjoying the Baltimore cuisine?
Oh.
The first place you went was that Irish pub. That was the first place I went to.
James Joyce.
Oh yeah. And then we went to
Which one was this?
Oh, sorry.
Was it Tiernanog or James Joyce?
Yeah, Tiernanog is in the inner hall.
Tiernanog, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that is, yeah.
Yeah. And I was just the amount of antiquities that they had in there as well. It was kind of blew my mind. I just went in there and went, wow, they brought all this stuff over and it's all here in the pub. That was pretty cool.
Oh, and that's James Joyce, Tiernanog. Well, unless Tiernanog does it too, because James Joyce. Yeah.
It's probably James.
James Joyce was brought over from Ireland, and then Pratt Street is also, the bar was shipped in.
Right.
I know entirely too much about Irish movies.
Yeah.
I have a question about the show. There's some cartoons are in a new era right now, actually, as far as production quality. And I think it is because once we sort of started this new movement, we care about hiring artists. Who cares about their craft? But I mean, some just aren't so good. But then there are some that really stand out, like Adventure Time, My Little Pony, Bob's Burgers. So I look at how these, like, the dialogue and the writing, and then of course the voice actors that someone gets to put the emotions in it. And there's these little nuances from within the storylines that are, you know, dare I use the word political, even in the sense that they're somewhat challenging our social norms, and in a way that's playful, so for us to somewhat think about it. Would you say that that's this like team effort of everybody, and how to put this out? Would you say it's primarily the writers? There's like little golden nuggets of dialogue within it that are ridiculously funny. Does that always fall, did that responsibility always fall upon the writers? That kind of stuff? I wish I had a clear example to somewhat give you. I just saw Amending Fences. It was the most recent one that someone came out, and it's completely about dealing with abandonment issues.
Oh yeah.
They did a really good job at it too. But there's like little key lines, and I was just wondering, who do we have to somewhat say, oh, who's responsible for these kinds of things?
It is definitely, I think, like, what do you call it? A combination of many things. Probably, obviously, the writing. You know, how solid the script is where you begin. Then it's up to the production team and the person who's the director to make sure that they understand the material really, really well, and are all on the same page, if you will, to be able to create the right energy and get, you know, be able to direct the cast, and be able to impart to them what the feel of the show, what the tone is, how the dialogue is going to be delivered, you know, whether or not we're hitting the right notes, if you will. It's interesting that you bring it up, actually, because, you know, it's changed a lot from the days of when, you know, the real sort of slapstick and big. It's like it's been pulled right back, where, in a sense, where it's more along the lines of live action now, as opposed to over the top sort of, like, you know, slapstick humor, which used to be predominantly in children's Saturday morning fare, right? It was always like sight gags and things like that, and it was always like, like, hey, what's going on over here? You know, it was like really really big, over the top kind of characters, and yeah, now we've come right back, and you know, when. It's interesting because I remember a long time, like probably about 10 or 15 years ago, they always used to put a big header on the top of the audition scripts. Used to say, not cartoony, think live action, submit strong actors only. You know, and those were the kind of notes at the top, because that was way the trend was bending towards. It was like, you know, you look at the stuff that's the Saturday morning fare now, and it definitely lends itself to that. So. What's interesting is it's really about creating a team that works.
And when did they start putting those like things on this?
I think like it's probably safe to say probably around about 10 or 15 years is sort of, that's when we first started to see it creeping in. And then now it's interesting, those headers are gone because they know now that, because I think the worry was in the beginning, was that anybody who was doing animation, they were like over the top, really sort of very in your face, very broad theater, kind of like children's theater actors, right? They didn't really sort of give us the nod that we were actors and that we would get that. That, you know, and anybody actually knows theater knows that, you know, you're not always, you're not going to walk in, oh, Elizabeth, my heart does, you know, it's like, that's, yeah, right? That's just such a stereotype. It's like great theater, you know, you go watch Kevin Spacey or somebody in a theater piece, it's like riveting, hard-hitting, you know, it's great acting. He's like, yeah, that little bit extra more because you have to hit the people in the back of the room, but it's not melodrama. It's not like, you know what I mean? And I think there's a little bit of misinterpretation there. I think because before they were really leaning towards hiring actors who were doing particularly TV, because TV had to be, you know, because the camera's right there, it's right there, it's very subtle. You could play it with just a look. You didn't have to, you know, ring out the dialogue to get your point across. And so it was more internal. And so that's the sort of style that they wanted to bring to the microphone, which was interesting because you still have to approach the microphone with that energy because you have to channel those emotions. You have to project that energy to the animators so that they can feel that look. They can feel that body posturing that you're taking, or whatever it is that your character's doing. You have to give the animators things to do. So it is a little bit more of that, but at the same time, it's, you know, you need to have that good, you have to hit that rooted, solid acting. You have to be a good actor, yeah.
So time-wise, we've only got a couple of minutes left, so if anyone has some lightning round questions they want to ask.
And they're sitting there going, lightning round with Dobson, he's like, you're asking for a lot there, he just keep chewing it up. Yeah, go ahead guys.
Who's best pony?
Who's best brony?
Pony.
It's funny because I keep going, but I have, it's like, so hard because I mean they're all my friends that I work with. I can't answer that question. I love them all, I really do. It's like those sessions are so much fun.
Yeah.
You know, and to watch everybody, because I mean everybody's really enjoying themselves, and I mean, and those that have been fortunate. What's that?
Or are you kind of coming like me?
No, a lot of times we are all together, depending. I mean, the casts, as you guys know from watching the show, a lot of times they have to sometimes stagger the sessions because it's just there might be way too many characters in one episode to get everybody in the room. But for the most part, yeah. I mean, the core cast, the main characters that you see, they're always together. So peripheral characters like mine, like bulk biceps and stuff like that. Sometimes, you know, us peripherals might just come in and just do our stuff, and then the people have all the main dialogue, their sessions after ours, and then, you know, they wrap everything up. So it depends on the particular script at the time. But yeah, otherwise we're always together.
You were about to give a talk on men and masculinity and My Little Pony, and do you feel like you've been thrusted into this kind of spokesperson, or you kind of were, maybe this already was part of who you were?
That's an interesting question. No, I feel it's interesting for me because it's something I didn't expect with bulk biceps. It's like, yeah, I guess probably, to be honest, more something I was thrust into. I hadn't expected it. Yeah, I didn't. It was. I'm flattered. I think it's. Well, it's not me. I can't really take that. It's the way that they created the character and how he came across and how he resonated with everybody, which is pretty cool. I was just fortunate, I guess, in the sense that people embraced him and were saying nice things about him, which is pretty cool. Yeah, yesterday I met some people who has said some really like beautiful things about how it affected them and how they kind of embraced it, and it's propelled them on to do things where it kind of brought themselves out of themselves, and they're feeling more confident about things. And I think I think that's wonderful if you're able to portray somebody who has that effect on somebody like in a positive way. That I just happen to be, you know, in the right place at the right time, maybe, you know, but yeah, it's cool. What I find wonderful is that people aren't looking at him like sort of raging, like the negative connotation that might be associated with somebody where he could come across as a bully or something like that. I think it's wonderful that people, what I always try to inject into him is this soft side to him. You know, he's got to have heart, he's got to be a warm character, and fortunately there's been those moments in the scripts where I've been able to bring that across about him. So yeah, he's kind of, I'm glad that he's not just like sort of a cookie cutter, this kind of sort of yelly guy. Yeah.
Last question, nice and short. Spiders or scorpions?
Oh, spiders or scorpions?
You have a Scorpio in the audience. Choose your words wisely.
I respect them both for two different reasons. Isn't that the fence sitter, this fence sitter thing? Like, scorpions are cool, but you know, spiders really, they provide. It's funny because my son has a spider that's parked out front of him, and all of a sudden he realized what a service he's been doing, so he's given him a name because he's catching all the mosquitoes that would be coming into his room. So he's let him stay there, and he's gone. Yeah, he's my buddy. He's like, he's my gatekeeper. Yeah, so he's given him a name, and he's like, yeah, it's kind of like it's like his doorman, and only like, you know, traps all the mosquitoes from going into his room, so he likes them. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much for your time.
Oh, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
I used to wonder what friendship could be, until you all shared its magic with me. Big adventure, tons of fun, a beautiful heart, faithful and strong, sharing kindness, it's an easy feat, and magic makes